sweet-smelling rows of flowers and all kinds of charming and exquisite creatures. It's our idyllic view of the perfect garden. But there's more to the garden than meets the eye. Nature will not conform to our rules, and we know little of what really goes on in our back gardens. Many of the creatures that live here lead secretive and mysterious lives, hidden in the bushes and the undergrowth. It's midsummer, and at the kestrel nest, the chicks are old enough to leave. To fly as gracefully as their mother will take some practice. She swoops past them in a sharp dive to encourage them to follow, but the chicks don't seem convinced. She gives up and returns with breakfast. Perhaps they'll be in the mood later. Even in the heat of summer, the garden is an oasis with its own supply of water. The plants rarely have to go dry. They're sheltered and protected, lovingly tended to by the gardener. This man-made habitat is unlike any other, the equivalent of a luxury spa for plants. As a result, an unusual assortment of plants can grow side by side. But the colourful blossoms are not intended simply for our delight. They are, in fact, complex structures designed for reproduction. The large head of the sunflower consists of a cluster of many individual blossoms. The outer petals are long and flashy to attract passing insects. The small florets in the centre contain the pollen and nectar and will eventually turn into seeds. Many others, like chrysanthemums and zinnias, also produce a mass of tiny flowers within one bloom. The large floral petals around the edge are sterile. Their sole purpose is to draw in insect pollinators. But the grand dame of them all must surely be the dahlia. The spectacular tapestry of shapes and colours was created to delight the human eye. Hundreds of years of cultivation have turned a small and simple flower into glorious blossoms. But while the dahlia's beauty may enchant our eyes, its soft flowers please another creature's palate. Slugs. They are the gardener's bane. Seemingly appearing out of nowhere, they attack the cherished flowers with a voracious appetite. For many gardeners, this assault on their prize plants is a call to battle. They have an arsenal of weapons at their disposal, colourful pellets to counter slug attacks. And for the enemy hiding in the trenches, traps to outwit the underground battalion. And strategic military intelligence for a counter-offensive on weeds. But unknown to many gardeners, there are secret allies hiding in the bushes. Inside the greenhouse, the warm and damp conditions are ideal for growing vegetables. They've also attracted a colony of paper wasps that have built their nest in the glass ceiling. When the heat inside builds up to uncomfortable levels, the workers help cool the air with rapid wing beats. Others go in search of water. Like tiny water bombers, they fill up their tank and carry it back to the nest. The cooling drink is shared among the colony. The green balls are cabbage-white caterpillars chewed into a pulp to feed the larvae. The wasps help to keep these garden pests under control, and the whole colony may dispose of 500 caterpillars in a season. This secret army of helpers usually goes unnoticed and is seldom appreciated. More often than not, we thank them by destroying their nests. Uninvited garden visitors will frequently face our displeasure, and some plants also seem to be less welcome than others. None more so than the common and pervasive stinging nettle. They are often regarded as troublesome weeds, but nettles are crucial for many of our moths and butterflies. They provide valuable food for the caterpillars. The caterpillars of some species feed exclusively on nettles, and they're not put off by the stinging hairs. In fact, these help to keep predators at bay. Even the prickly hedgehog seeks cover amongst the leaves. Few predators are likely to follow him here. The nettle's fine hairs break off easily on contact and inject an irritant poison into the skin. The unpleasant sensation ensures that caterpillars and hedgehogs are left in peace. At dusk, the hedgehog leaves the safety of his hideout. He's got urgent business to attend to. He's picked up the scent of a female. He circles her to signal his intentions. This courtship dance can last for several hours. At last, she is willing, and their marriage is consummated in a bed of nettles. All around them, caterpillars of the small tortoiseshell butterfly are busy feeding on the nettles. And since the prickly plants offer good protection, they don't go far to transform into a pupa. This curious, yet strangely beautiful structure is called a chrysalis. It gives little indication of the extraordinary transformation taking place inside. Two weeks later, and the secret is revealed. A perfectly formed butterfly emerges. The wings still need to be pumped up, and the feeding tube, which is split in two parts, must be zipped together. Red admirals are also emerging from their pupae. Both tortoiseshell and admiral head straight for the buddleia flower to fuel up. There's a good reason why the buddleia is known as the butterfly bush. Rich in nectar, it acts as a magnet for our most popular summer visitors. But this nectar feeder is no butterfly. It's a kind of moth. It hovers in mid-air while feeding, so is sometimes mistaken for a hummingbird, hence its name, hummingbird hawk moth. Real hummingbirds pollinate this North American honeysuckle in the wild. In our European gardens, it remains unfertilized and bears no fruit. Amongst the colourful and exotic, our smaller garden creatures are often overlooked. A jumping spider. They have superb eyesight and can judge the distance they need to jump perfectly. A dragline of silk helps stabilise the fall and control the landing. But should a male land in the territory of another, especially when there's a female about, things can come to a head. Sometimes the only way out is a jump to freedom. In summer, the garden is a hive of activity, with animals and plants all out to breed and propagate. Wild roses attract numerous insect visitors. Honeybees collect nectar and pollen to feed their young. As they travel from flower to flower, they inadvertently pollinate the plants. But not all visitors are this helpful. The large rose chafer beetle is after the soft petals and will make a meal of the entire flower. it gives nothing in return for the plant's hospitality. Wild roses provide plenty of food for insects, but their ornamental cousins, bred for their attractive blooms, carry very little pollen or nectar. Nonetheless, there are insects which fatten up quite successfully on cultivated roses. Aphids. They use their sharp mouthparts to pierce into the soft stems, sucking the sap and life out of the plant. Luckily, help is at hand: ladybirds. They may look endearing, but they're ferocious predators. A single ladybird will eat nearly 10,000 aphids during the course of a summer. Not surprisingly, they're a gardener's best friend. Roses have long been symbols of love and beauty. They've been our passion for millennia and continue to delight gardeners today. For many of us, our garden is a place of tranquility, our secret escape. It's a sanctuary from busy lives, where we can reconnect with nature and watch the seasons go by. Tending to our plants and nurturing seedlings can provide unexpected pleasure. It's fuel for the soul. This is our own Garden of Eden, to shape and design as we please. With summer in full swing, the gardener's efforts are starting to bear fruit. The tomato is one of our most popular garden vegetables. Originally from Mexico, the ancient Aztecs valued its sweet flesh more than 2,000 years ago. They called it shitomatl. Today, it's grown and eaten all over the world, a staple ingredient in our culinary dishes and valued for its savoury flavour. But it's not the plump red fruits that another garden resident is after. The caterpillar of the death's head hawk moth has a taste for the tomato's leaves. The caterpillar, when fully grown, is as big as a man's finger. It seeks out a sheltered spot and burrows underground. Here, it will turn into a pupa. It will be another month before the moth emerges from the brown cocoon. Other insects are also feasting in the vegetable patch. Bees are attracted by the large yellow flowers with a promise of nectar deep within. The food is a bribe to persuade the animals to act as couriers, transporting pollen, ensuring a crop of large, round pumpkins in a few weeks' time. While most of our garden produce makes its way into our kitchens, some also finds its way out again. In many households, it ends up on the compost heap in a quiet corner of the garden. But even here, hidden from our eyes, a colourful community of creatures thrives. This ample supply of food will not go to waste. These are rich pickings for small animals. Hornets are the largest predators on the rotting pile, but they pose little threat to humans. The old saying that 3 stings from a hornet can kill a human and 7 can kill a horse is a myth. Their sting is no more painful than a bee's. And these hornets are after the remains of sweet fruit. But fruit salad is only the first course at this buffet. The main meal is still to follow. Hornets also prey on other insects, and being larger in size than most, they have the advantage. A wasp is easily disposed of with a bite of those powerful jaws. And there is an abundance of small flies. The compost heap is the perfect hunting ground. But the kill is not intended for personal consumption. The hornet carries it back to the nest. European hornets usually build their nests in hollow trees, but since these are in short supply, this colony has moved into an empty bird box. The returning worker is greeted by her colony members. The parcel of food, already partly chewed, is passed on to another worker. She is the childminder and will take it through to the nursery. There, the larvae are fed on the nutritious insect paste. The colony numbers 500 workers, but by the end of the summer, it could have doubled in size. Other workers are busy with repairs to the nest. New walls are constantly added, made from a pulp of wood and saliva. The entire colony works tirelessly to bring food and building materials to the nest. A yellowhammer's cheerful song resonates through the garden. Back on the compost heap, there's an unusual arrival. A grass snake had laid a clutch of eggs in the pile of rotting vegetables in late spring. Now, the tiny snakelets are hatching. A brood of snakes in the compost may be disconcerting for some, but grass snakes are completely harmless. They don't bite, even when accidentally disturbed. The small, worm-like creatures are no larger than a pencil. The warm and damp conditions on the pile were ideal for incubating the eggs. Now, the tiny reptiles squirm away to independence. Real worms live in the compost all year round. 20 to 30 different kinds live in our gardens, and the red earthworm is one of the most common. It eats scraps of vegetation and breaks them up into smaller parts. The rich compost eventually ends up fertilizing flower beds and lawns. But underneath the lush grass, other creatures are at work. And a clue to their presence are the distinctive mounds they leave on our lawns. Moles are busy beavering away beneath our feet. They are industrious diggers. They create an intricate system of tunnels and chambers underground. In one of these, they store live prey, earthworms, paralyzed by a bite. Moles only feed on worms and insects. The much maligned animals, in fact, do very little damage to our plants. These ripening berries are in no danger from the subterranean digger. Beneath the ripening berries, the short grass and abundant shade are perfect conditions for small mushrooms, stalked puffballs. They thrive in our gardens where water is plentiful, even at the height of summer. The life-giving water provides more than ideal growing conditions for mushrooms and berries. The ripe fruit sac of the puffball explodes under the onslaught of drops, releasing precious spores into the air. Other fungi also thrive in the damp, nutrient-rich soil. The shaggy ink cap has a distinctive white cylinder that quickly turns black. The slimy liquid oozing from the darkening edges of the cap is filled with spores and drips to the ground. It's the ink cap's way of propagating itself. At night, our gardens come alive with very different creatures. The night shift is one we rarely catch a glimpse of. Emerging out of the shadows, a red fox. Foxes have become regular visitors to urban gardens, attracted by the chance of an easy meal. On warm summer nights, strange sounds emerge from the garden shed. Small goblins are out and about. Edible dormice. They're so called because they were eaten as snacks by the Romans. The squirrel-like creatures are out of sight, asleep for 8 months of the year. But now they have to fatten up and double their weight in time for hibernation. They mostly feed on fruits and seeds, and the garden shed offers plenty of opportunity. In the early hours of the morning, the little rascals retreat back to their nest. A hollow tree or empty bird box serves as a daytime hideout. When the sun rises above the horizon, the dormice are safely tucked up in bed. Little wonder we rarely see these elusive creatures. By late summer, the trees are bursting with ripe fruit. Most animals are well into the breeding season or have finished rearing their young. But there is one creature that's only just starting to build its nest. The field digger wasp. She works tirelessly, excavating a breeding cavity in the loose sand. It's a tricky business. The delicate construction can cave in at the slightest disturbance. And she has no shortage of visitors. A male wasp looking for prospective females. But she has already mated, and her message is clear. This lady is not for the taking. When the coast is clear, she heads off towards the flower beds. The sweet-smelling borders are brimming with insects. Rich pickings for insect eaters like the flycatcher. The female wasp has also been successful. She brings a juicy fly back to the burrow. A passing male knows there's little to be gained by stopping here. The female is stocking up the nest with food for her offspring. The flycatcher is also providing for her young. But she will need hundreds of flies to raise her chicks. The first leaves are turning, a sign that autumn is on its way. But even now, some flowers are just coming into bloom, adding a last splash of colour to our gardens. The cheerful flowers of the Michaelmas daisy are still in full flow and provide a last supply of nectar to many insects. The peacock butterfly converts the nectar into antifreeze against the cold. It will spend the winter hibernating in a sheltered spot. The striking eye spots are meant to deter predators, but they don't keep all hunters at bay. The hornets will not all survive the winter and are looking for their last supper before being claimed by the cold. Other garden animals are preparing for their southward migrations. The starlings are feasting on sweet fruits, fueling up on energy reserves. But even year-round residents like the robin and great tit indulge in the rich banquet of autumn fruits. The red colour of these berries is an irresistible invitation. This tree depends on birds to disperse its seeds. As night frosts set in, the trees shut down their green food-making factories and colourful autumn leaves float to the ground. It's a magical time of year in the garden. But the first frosts have killed off some of the less resilient flowers. Their drooping heads are a reminder that summer is over. The time for flowers may be gone, but the trees are littering the ground with more than leaves. There are nuts and seeds to be had. For many creatures, this is a time of plenty. Squirrels diligently gather stores for the winter. Red squirrels bury hundreds of nuts and acorns in the ground. But this one's being watched by a thief. The resourceful jay has spotted an opportunity. It follows the squirrel's every move and remembers each item's exact position. And the clever bird is just as skillful at opening the stolen nut. apple is the best loved of garden trees, and its fallen fruit is a magnet for all kinds of creatures. The hedgehogs are after snails and worms attracted by the apples. But they will also happily partake of the soft fruit. At the end of October, strange shapes appear in many gardens. It's Halloween, and carved lanterns cast an eerie glow into the night. They mark the end of the harvest season. But the pumpkin's days are numbered. The hollow fruit, now open to the elements, slowly caves in, eaten away by bacteria and fungi. The last of the season's fruit is ready to be gathered. The humble apple has served us well for centuries. We grow more than 1,000 different kinds and eat our way through billions of them each year. And yet, a new EU directive could mean the end for many. Plans to ban the sale of non-registered kinds threatens some of our oldest varieties. We take much less notice of many other fruits that grow in our gardens. The purple berries of this ornamental vine are poisonous to us, but they are clearly a favourite with blackbirds. The birds gorge themselves on the autumn berries and then fly off to disperse the seeds around the garden. The vibrant colours of autumn seem to pass in a flash, and winter is here. Life comes to a near standstill. Plants and animals asleep under a thick blanket of snow. But the first cover of snow offers other delights. The garden is now a paradise for children. For generations, children have made their own creations in the snow, transforming the garden into a winter wonderland. But whilst the human residents can retreat inside for warmth and shelter, the garden animals have no such luxury. This is a tough time of year for many. small birds need extra energy to keep warm in the freezing temperatures. A regular supply of food is crucial, and they depend on our little handouts. Others welcome the fruits that kindly gardeners leave on trees. Even usually shy birds, such as the great spotted woodpecker, overcome their fear to take advantage of these offerings. The thousands of tons of bird food we put out each year help many of our garden birds survive the winter. The red squirrels are less needy of our help. They set up secret stores in the autumn. And now it's time to retrieve the much-needed supplies. Bingo! He's hit the jackpot. But sometimes there are easier ways to obtain a nut. The snowman's inviting smile is quite irresistible. As temperatures rise again, the snow retreats. With lengthening days, the garden awakens to life once more. There's the first arrival of birds pushing northwards again. A flock of long-tailed tits. But the resident sparrows are unwilling to share. The sun's warming rays trigger a burst of colour in the garden. The spidery blooms of the witch hazel are amongst the first, as are the fresh white flowers of the Christmas rose. With each passing day, new life emerges in the garden. Carpets of snowdrops cover the ground. And the flush of nectar coincides with the first appearance of insects. From underneath the leaf litter and between every nook and cranny, the garden's secret residents reappear. With spring in the air, there's a new frenzy of activity. From the shy and elusive to the colourful and flamboyant, our gardens are just a little piece of paradise.